Hello everyone, by the way. Let me welcome everyone into the stream. Unfortunately, we lost the recording of this. We have to do the study stream again because the last time we did it, we streamed at the very specific moment in time where all of the Twitch VODs got corrupted. So we're going to start again. But to be honest, this isn't that good. I think we can do a better job. We'll see. A value study is a study of values. That's it. End of video. Cut. So no color, just like a black and white image, a black and white still. And it's most helpful to study from films because films have intentionality between every scene, every frame, and it's composed in a way to communicate a story to the audience. You don't want to find like just any random image you find online and do a study of it because it might not be that appealing of a composition. So it's best to leave that to, award-winning cinematographers, let's say. I want to go over color to grayscale methods. This is an aside and not really related to value studies. It's kind of a technical knowledge, but I still think it's important. So here we have an image from the film Kamikaze Girls, and it's very cool. Even though this is in color, you have an idea of what the values might be. And the three main ways to go from color to grayscale would be just a white layer, any grayscale layer works, and setting it to the blending mode color, this one. And you might notice, it looks a little bit strange. Why does it look like the red value is like much darker? This is just one of the consequences that come from this particular algorithm. It gets the value wrong. Another method would be using the black and white filter. Many different drawing apps have different black and white filters. And yeah, you can already see the difference between this one, which is the black and white filter, and this one, which is the kind of white layer on color blending mode filter. They're quite different and they're both wrong. The interpretation that I prefer is this, which is dot gain 20%. I don't know if it's on every single drawing application, but it's definitely on Photoshop by default. You go to edit, convert to profile, which is down here, and then you just choose dot gain 20. So there's a huge list here. Dot gain 20 is somewhere near the top here in this section. There's different percentages and I don't really know what the difference is. To be perfectly honest, I heard dot gain 20 once said by someone, an artist that I respected, and I've just used it ever since. I'm passing on that knowledge onto you guys. Once again, I don't know why, but this is the one that works. And just press OK. Luckily for you guys, I've actually prepared a Pinterest board with all of the images, both in color and in black and white. I thought that these were all very good, and they've sort of been ordered in a way where there's like a gradual change in the value structures. There are supposedly 6, maybe 7 kind of general lighting structures, which can be used to communicate a wide variety of emotions. 6, 7. Okay, anyways, high key lighting is when the lighting is very bright. Generally, you would expect to see the values existing in like the top half of the spectrum, the more brighter half of the spectrum. We know that as high key. And of course, the opposite of high key would be low key. Low key is not here. Low key with light accent is here though. But I do think that low key is still a valid lighting structure. Low key, it just doesn't really present well as an illustration, but obviously in a storytelling context within a film, you often will have low-key scenes where most of the scene is extremely dark. I found 1 or 2 of them and looked back. The lightest value is a 70% gray. I'm calling this low-key entirely. There are no light accents here. But obviously, as you saw before, we have low key with light accent. So things mostly existing within that kind of darker half of the spectrum, but with a light accent. And then we have kind of the opposite of that, which is high key with a dark accent. I'm not like too sure really if this really is high key with dark accent. There are like 1 or 2 values in the darker range, but it's kind of like a mostly high exposure image with just like a dark accent, it feels like. Continuing onwards, we also have mid-range. So instead of like high key having all of your values in the bright half or low key having all your values in the dark half, mid-range has the values kind of in the middle grayish area. So this scene from Blade Runner, it's like really hazy and smoky, and so a lot of the depth of value gets compressed, and so you get a mid-range value. Then we also have, leading on from mid-range, we have full range. So it's not low key, it's not high key, it's not mid-range, it's full range. You get the entire spectrum of the values from, basically pure white all the way to pure black and everything in between. And then you have high contrast. So high contrast has a similar range in terms of like the top end and the low end of full range where you have white and black, but you have barely anything in between. You can almost think of high contrast as being the opposite of mid-range. So mid-range has stuff in the middle, whilst high contrast has stuff on either end of the spectrum. High contrast is kind of like the bread of the sandwich. Meanwhile, mid-range is like the fillings of the sandwich, if that makes sense. They're the 6 or 7 lighting structures that we need to be able to identify, because when we're studying, we don't just want to copy something, but we want to understand the intent and try to recreate the intent. Simplify it to its most minimal kind of structure, but still get the point across. High key, low key. High key with dark accent, low key with light accent. Mid-range, full range, and then high contrast. Okay, here in this document I've already prepared ahead of time, I have laid out 7 images which I think correlate to the 7 lighting structures which we just discussed. We'll at least try to do 3. Before we get started, I'm going to lay down some ground rules. For the experienced artist, you are welcome to use any brush that you would like. For the inexperienced artists, for those who haven't really done value studies before and for those that don't want to get anything wrong, I recommend that use a hard round brush. I don't want us to be kind of trying to finesse the tones and stuff. And that leads into the next point, which is that these studies will be only 5 values. The same was done on all of these ones. I used only 5 values for each of them. And obviously if you're using a limited range of values, I don't want you guys to be blending anything or have any softness in your brush. Will you pick the values or will you pick them ourselves? So part of this task will be that you need to pick them yourself. You need to be able to identify what it is. What we have to do is do something called value grouping, because obviously there's way more than 5 values in this image. But what you might do is say, okay, well, I think that this jacket value and maybe this shadow value is kind of very similar, and I'm going to make that all one value. And then, you know, this, if I squint my eyes, it's all just like one big block of white. So I'm going to treat all of that as one value as well. Okay, next rule, 1 layer only. Don't want you guys to worry about having really clean shapes and all that jazz. I just want you guys to focus on carving the shapes out, trying to get to the right impression. One more rule is no color picking. We want to train our eyes and train our ability to pick the right value. And lastly, we want to have a time limit on these. We're not trying to make a perfect carbon copy of the image. We're going to try to capture the impression as quickly and effectively as possible. Yes, did I just walk into homework? No, this is not homework. You might do it at home, but we're doing it right now. This is classwork, yes. I already graduated, not again. What can I tell you? Learning is lifelong. Just because you finish school doesn't mean you stop learning. I'm going to start off with this high key one. You guys can do this one as well. This will be like the warm up, because I think this is probably the most simple one, just to get going and get a feel for how this works. Okay, so my main method of this would be to squint and kind of block things in large chunks. So if I squint, I can kind of see maybe, let's try to split this up into a 2 value structure first. So I'm going to get my second value, which I think is that, and I'm going to put it where I see that darker value. So like the shadow here, like the shadows along the ground, and then also the jacket that the character is wearing. Yeah, make sure that your brush isn't super small. The quicker you get something down, the easier it gets. Just try to lay down in large chunks. We will tweak some of the values later, as some of them are obviously darker, but for now, I'm just doing this. You'll notice as well, I'm not like super zoomed in. I might even zoom out a little bit more. Don't be so zoomed in and don't try to work on such a large canvas. It's probably helpful to work on something small so you don't have even the ability to zoom in. This is great as well for people that are not comfortable with painting yet, especially with color. You know, that's a whole other variable that can make things really difficult. The mountains do have a lot of subtlety, so you might be kind of compelled to get the whole value range from it, but you're gonna have to be a bit choosy about your values because we only have 5 of them. Even though this is, you know, animated, so it's a drawing and it has less detail than IRL, it's still incredibly detailed. I'm at a point where I want to start introducing another value, 1 darker value, probably around here. Don't be afraid to like pick the wrong color. You can pick a value, put it down, and if you think it's wrong, you just tweak it a little bit. That's about where I want it to be. You can see that the value of the skin and the value of the jacket is a bit different. Skin's a bit lighter, so maybe it's the same as the one that we used for the mountains. Since we have like this kind of darker value, I can start to introduce a little bit of that, something that's slightly darker. to add a little bit more subtlety, which I think there's a lot of in the mountain, so I think it deserves to have. So currently we've used 4 values. We have one more value that we can use. Okay, I'm going to do one more middle gray. So this white that I have here is the brightest white, and I'm going to just do something that's slightly darker than that for one more value. And also I can use this for that other mountain in the back here. And there we go, our perfect 5 values. And as I'm squinting right now, actually, I've noticed that maybe my darkest value that I chose isn't dark enough. So I'm just selecting and I'm going to just make it a little bit darker. Squinting is honestly my favorite. I got taught this method by my art teacher when I was young. She was Chinese, so she would say 眯着眼睛. It is truly one of the greatest techniques of all time. Right, I think I'm almost done, to be honest. Like, if you just look at the study on its own, you'll kind of notice that, oh, we've already communicated the intent of the image. Are you guys ready to move to the next one? If you're not ready to move to the next one, squint at the reference in your image and try to identify what's the quickest thing I can do to take this to a more complete state down. Maybe you're missing an entire value range. Maybe there's a section that you misevaluated the value of and it's kind of like throwing everything off. There's also an important skill to have as an artist. Okay, I'm going to move on to this one because I really like this one. It's probably my favorite one. For those of you who are not super confident, I suggest that you follow along with me so that you can kind of look at what I've done if you get a bit stuck, and you can like kind of hear me directly commentate on the specific reference that I'm working on. I want my first value to represent like this wall area. It's like this general gray that I think is the biggest value in the image. I'm starting off with that kind of middle gray, and now I'm going to do one of the darker values. So there is like a massive clutter of detail here. Don't worry about that. Just like kind of squint your eyes, try to eliminate all of the detail and just kind of leave marks that capture an impression of what's going on. I'm adding another value now, which is this outside the window kind of value. There's a bit of that kind of leaks through as well. We'll try to get that in first. I should not have like detailed this mug like that. We're kind of at a stage right now, at least I am, where we should not be adding detail to things because you're just going to mess it up anyway. So far I've only used 3 values, and the values are very scattered throughout the image, which makes it more difficult as well compared to the first one that we did. But yeah, just take your time. Don't rush too much. That's not very helpful advice because it's like, do this, but not too much. Sometimes you can do the other thing.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be...
I think I will take the dark value a notch higher. I'll show you guys another special technique. Select color range, and then you can select that specific value, adjust the fuzziness so that you pick up only what you want to pick up. So I think that correctly selected that value range there. Control H can hide the marching ants, and then I'm just going to use curves. Control M, you can bring that up, and then you can just raise the value. So I think I wouldn't actually describe this as being high-key dark accent. It's kind of the opposite, to be honest. It's low-key light accent. The light accent is the white we've got going there. So yeah, in doing the study, you can find out something about it that you didn't realize before. It's pretty cool. Before the curve, did you select layer or just a particular one? So even though the color selector selected everything that was visible, if you have things separated on different layers, it'll only affect the layer that you're working on. At this point, I'm really indulging now. I'm adding like all the little bits and pieces. Isn't necessarily a bad thing. Part of the study is trying to learn how to organize the chaos. When it comes down to the detail, it does take time, and sometimes it's worth taking that time. Okay, no more noodling. I like this. Next one. Yes, I'm doing this one as my high contrast example. This one might be fairly simple as well. There's not too much clutter. Like the actual scene in itself, it's like a clean building, you know? It's like a CCTV camera angle. Interesting composition choice. Sometimes things aren't like as masterminded and crafted as you might think. Sometimes it's just like, oh, like I saw an image online and I liked it, so that's what we went with. This kind of reflection value is part of the light range, so I just paint that in for now, but we will introduce something that's a little darker to represent that. And same with like this sliver here. This sliver actually comes from Fresnel. As things are viewed more on an angle, they become more reflective. So even though light isn't like hitting this kind of surface here, because it's on such an angle, it's picking up reflection. As you learn different things about the properties of lighting and styles of composition stuff, being able to identify them and kind of name them is quite helpful as you're doing the studies. If you guys are having difficulty with this one, if you guys are following along, use a perspective grid. That's cheating. No, I'm just kidding. It's a bit tricky deciding when to take your time and when to move along. Don't worry too much. Life isn't a race, although it may feel that way. Also, for some reason, I have like 4 values in the shadows. What happened? I don't know how, but I accidentally cheated, but no one has to know that.
That's cheating.
I'm just going to continue like nothing happened. I'm pretty happy with this. I think it looks pretty good. Okay, so first of all, you want to make sure that your study is successful in reinterpreting the film still. So if you squint your eyes, they should look very similar. Once that is true, then now I'm going in and showing you guys what the values are to better illustrate the different value structures. So that's where my values lie. I think high key makes sense. There's just like one rogue value that is in the top half, but it's not very far in. It's like a 60% gray. So this is our high contrast one, and I think it's already pretty evident. As you can see, they're grouped very far apart. So this one will be actually very interesting to see because I think that I got it completely wrong. It also is not necessarily about the total like range of the values, but about how much value there is that exists of each value. Even though this has like kind of a dark accent, it's such a small amount that like it doesn't really push the composition in that direction. So for this one, kind of not sure. It looks kind of mid-range when you lay out the values like this, but looking at the actual thing, it kind of looks low-key with light accent. So something you can do, you can kind of like analyze an image. Go Control M, which is curves, and you can see the histogram. So you can see here the values. So on this side is your light values. If I kind of move this, I'm making the light values lighter or I'm making them darker. And then on this side is the dark values, and I can make it lighter or I can make it darker. And so this can visually show you the proportion of each value. So even though there is a dark accent, it's like a very small sliver. Whereas most of the image, if you count like the area of the graph, exists within this light range. You can clearly see this is a high key image based on the histogram. You can take a look at this one, for example, and see scientifically what it is. There is a lot more in the dark range than in the light range, evidently by like this big foreground chunk. But once again, like I'm not so sure about calculating the amount of this foreground like dark area to kind of identify the intent of the scene, because I feel like this foreground area is actually irrelevant to the content of the scene, if that makes sense. I'd be opposed to like calling this full range or something like that. So there we have it. I hope you guys enjoyed the 3 studies that I did here and found the commentary to be useful, and that at least you guys got as much out of this as I did. You're welcome all to work along to this video. I have left the Pinterest board link in the comments, and yeah, hope that was helpful. So that was our second video. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you'd like to see in the future. And if you do this exercise, feel free to share it with us in our Discord community, link down below. This channel has been a work in progress, but we're building it up slowly. So thank you all, and see you next time. If I knew how to hotwire a car, I would teach you guys. Unfortunately, I don't know.
Have you worn wigs?
I have not worn wigs. When you see the shots in black and white for so long, when you see them in color, suddenly they're like exploding on your eyes. You're like, what? Do I need to do a YouTube outro?